time to wake up. It's time to wake up. It's time to wake up. It's time to wake up.
Thank you very much for the ones who are still here. My name is Christian, and I start with a very simple claim, which was mentioned before. There is no deforestation in Europe. And I want you to think about it. Who of you would think that this is true or not? You can raise your hand if you disagree. Okay, I see one hand. Most people seem to say, well, indeed, it's true, there is no deforestation in Europe. That's because there's nothing left, right? We have a long history from the Romans for their ships to industrialized nations, for coals and firing and building materials, which made sense in the past. But the result today is that we have 2% less left of nature. 80% of ecosystems are completely destroyed. In Germany, 79% of trees are sick or dead, as you can see here. And, it's a bit of a problem. So why does it matter at all to have intact nature? I think most of you here will know that we depend on nature as a species, right? We need water to drink, to survive, we need clean air, but even daily services, like food and cotton and silk, for our clothes, from wood as well, for building material, we depend on it. And if we look at a global level, up to 60% of global GDP depends on nature. And this number is given by the World Economic Forum, which I wouldn't, see as the greenest of all organizations in the world. And if we look at it from a systemic point of view, so how do companies interact with nature? It's it's actually a web of interdependencies. It's a give and take. In theory, the practice is it's a take, and we've been taking so long. And so the question is, if our species depend on it, and if our welfare depends on it, how do we keep destroying nature at such an alarming rate everywhere in the world? We think it's because there's a model which we've created which favors, consumption, overconsumption, and where the destruction of nature comes at no cost. And even if there is a cost for nature, it means you can pay for it and just continue doing as you want, right? The classic compensation. So what we think is we need a business case for nature, right? We need to flip the coin, we need incentives, and we need nature not just to be paid for as a cost, but actually as a value. So how are we going to do that? First of all, the good news is, there's always a good news and a bad news. The good news is we're not alone in thinking that something has to be done, right? Everyone wants to get involved, everyone wants to be neutral or whatever. And beyond that, there's a changing landscape from EU regulations like CSRD, the Green Claims Directive, and the Carbon Removal Certification Framework, which for the first time set a common language between actors of sustainability, biodiversity across a whole continent, which is incredible. Secondly, and obviously that drives this change, there's an increased stakeholder engagement. It starts with customers who start to think with their wallet, but also with their head and the consciousness. Employees who realize that their time is the most important asset which they have, and obviously they want to give that time for something valuable. And then obviously, last but not least, investors who want to hedge the risk and also be able to start investing in something which goes beyond ESG, but actually has value for, people, profit, and the planet as well. And then lastly, sustainability is not just hidden in a marketing department, it starts to be a strategic importance linked to the CSRD, linked to the CEO. That's the good news. The bad news is, and I'll be a bit provocative, no one seems to know how to get along. Everyone wants to get involved, but there's so many things, It starts with, how do you set your reduction targets? First of all, where do you get the data from? And I mean, clearly Germany is not the most digitized nation, but it's the same for many other ones. Secondly, compensation, neutralization are becoming black words, and rightly so. There's only a global neutrality, and we should all contribute. But if every company in the world was neutral, we would still need 3 worlds, so it doesn't make sense. Goes along with that trust and transparency. When you do climate action, how can you make sure that every euro actually arrives and has a major impact? Where we go back to the question, where to invest? If I'm a German mid-sized company with German employees, and my whole value chain is here, why would I invest on the other side of the world, right? Unless for, the bit of money. How do you communicate it? How do you get people involved? And last but not least, how do you get it financed? How do you get your CEOs on board to actually invest in climate action, which makes sense? Now, we've been in the field for a couple of years. In Europe, we're in France, Denmark, and Germany. And if we need to summarize, the golden triangle of climate action, we obviously have the economic side, the transparency, and the impact. And combining these three is exactly what we're trying to do. And this is our proposal. What about capturing carbon, preserving biodiversity in your own permanent European forest? That's right, your own forest. With EcoTree, instead of paying for an offset or cleaning it, you actually grow an asset, a natural asset, which is in your balance sheet, gains financial value, and obviously also provides all the ecosystem services like cleaning the air, having proper soils, giving wood, water, and landscape and habitats for important species. The way we do it, and we are a forestry company, our founders are foresters, is we look at degraded lands, which can be monocultures or former agricultural land. We look at what's there, what has been there before, what's around it, what is the potential, the baseline and the potential in terms of biodiversity, water, soil, and carbon, and then develop adapted plans for permanent mixed forests or peatlands or agroforestry projects, anything which, again, makes most sense in this area. It obviously varies from, Denmark, which basically has no forest left, to Germany, which has forests, but they're all dead. So we need to apply it to a local and hyper-local plan. Starting with, the modeling, the lands, seeing who's around, which partners can we have, sourcing, the analysis, implementation, and then the last part, which is one of the most important ones, and where the other founders, which come more from a finance background, come in, which is the valuation. And by valuation, we also mean financial valuation, which again is the game changer for many companies to stop thinking of a ton for a ton, and I just need to be neutral. No, I actually want to have a financial case of owning a forest, which actually gives me many benefits. If we think about it, I think it's not a secret that many very rich people and family own a lot of forest in Europe. That's because the financial value of it is so important, right? And it can be state forest, which belong to everyone. But as a company as well, if I want to have this economic impact, the financial impact, the natural impact, as well as the biodiversity, it makes a lot of sense to actually own the land. There's lots of benefits. I'll just look at the main ones. You obviously have this tangible natural asset on your balance sheet. You have land value increase, not just in terms of the nature, because the soil is getting better, because animals go back and thrive in it, but also because financially that land values. Obviously, a forest is a forest, and we have a legal bind in Germany, and France is very similar as well, which protects forests, which is super important as well. And in terms of carbon and biodiversity, you are actually at the source of all your data. So in terms of reporting, be it for CSRD or your net zero ambitions based on what you want to do, you have all the data at your disposal because you actually own it. So it's no third parties, there's nothing in between. You actually have the highest quality and integrity projects at hand. Just to wrap it up, where we've been, it's actually been a very good road. We started in France, now in Denmark and Germany as well. As you see, it's not just forests, there's a lot of peatlands as well. And that's a whole variety which we try to develop with customers who, again, see that they have a local impact. So let's give back. Go back to the give and take. Everyone's been taking for centuries. It's time to give back now, and therefore have access to very high quality nature-based solutions. You can go there with your customers, with your employees, and visit the projects, and again have this financial valuation on your balance sheet. We all know what's on the left, that's the typical SDGs, and obviously it's very important, and there's many goals to work forward to. I like the one on the right, which is basically the level of achieving the 3 billion tree pledge, which is part of the EU Green Deal. And if you look, there's quite a gray zone, and I don't talk about Switzerland or the UK, because last time I checked, they were not part of the EU anymore. So the gray zone is actually only Germany. So there can be two reasons. Either we are not digital enough to just put in numbers of trees in a website. I think the other reason is that there haven't been any incentives for private people as well as corporations to actually invest at scale into our ecosystems. We believe that our model actually changes that, and we're seeing the first results. So if you want to learn a bit more, our stand is literally just behind the corner. So very happy to talk. Thank you very much.
It's time to wake up.